Hello, this winter at Lincoln Library we are doing our Learn To programs. That is Learn to Knit, Learn to Crochet, and Learn to Embroider to help you, our patrons, to make blankets for the cats at Forever Home Feline Ranch. Our fundraiser, Knittin for Kittens, is a collection of blankets 17 by 17 for the cats that are looking for their forever homes. If you would like to make a blanket besides for the ones that you'll be making at our Learn To program, please feel free to make as many as you'd like, and they don't have to be crocheted or knit either. You could do one with fleece, sew one, whatever your preferred method is. Today the lovely Brandy will be showing you how to knit a blanket.
Hello! Okay, when you get your Knittin for Kittens kit from Lincoln Library, you're going to have chopsticks, which will work as knitting needles, and some yarn, and a pattern. What you're going to want to do is split apart your chopsticks, and if the ends end up a little rough, or even if the whole needle, the whole chopstick, which I'm going to call needles from now on, is a little rough, you can take a nail file, or if you have a scrap of sandpaper, and sand it down a little bit. Mine weren't rough at all along the length, but they were a little rough here on the end. So if you wanted to take a little bit of like a nail file and just rub on that a little bit, you can, and get that roughness off there. It's not dire, it probably will not affect your knitting. But if you want to do that, you can. Okay, so to start out, here's what you're going to do. You're going to take your yarn, and to begin, we're going to cast on, which is just a fancy way of saying getting the stitches on the needle. The first thing you're going to do is tie a slip knot. So if it's been a while since, camp, and you haven't done that in a while, it's real easy. You're just going to make a loop. I always tend to like to make the loop around my fingers like this. But however you want to make a loop, and then you are going to take, and I like to make it around my fingers because I just reach my fingers through like that, and grab that extra string, the one that's attached to the rest of the ball of yarn, not your tail, and pull it through, and that will tie a little knot around that, and it makes it, don't tie it real tight, it's got to slip, so, and then you can slip it back and forth like this. All right, I'll do it one more time. So take a length of the yarn, make a loop, and then however you want to do it, if it takes two hands, it doesn't matter. As long as you get your loop, you're going to wrap one side around, and then you're going to pull through and make a knot. And again, don't pull it too tight. So there's your slip knot. Then you are going to pick up one of your chopsticks or your needles, and you're going to tug on that and tighten it up. Not too tight, just to about there. See, it can easily move around on the needle. So you're going to put that right through that slip knot and snug it up just a little bit. Now, when you cast on, I believe your pattern tells you to cast on 68 stitches, thereabouts. You don't have to be exact. If if you're counting and you get to 70, it's fine. If you get to 65, it's fine. It's a blanket for a kitty, they won't mind. The easiest way to get more stitches, this is your first one, on the needle, is to make little loops, and I like to use my thumb, but you can use your finger, whatever is comfortable for you. Wrap that yarn around, and then you're going to put your needle into that loop from the bottom. See how I'm going under that yarn? And then just leave it on the needle like that. I'm going to show you again. So you wrap it around a finger or a thumb, put your needle in from the bottom, and then just leave it on the needle. And don't snug those up too tight. Leave them real loose. You're going to need wiggle room here. Okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to cast on 10. So I'm going to show you this 10 times. Well, 9 times, I suppose. So there's 4, 5, 'You'll get to where you can do this pretty fast, especially doing 68 or so of them. Now I've lost count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. We need one more. Okay, so there's our 10 stitches. Like I said, you'll do 68. And I will tell you, when you get 68 stitches on here, it's going to be a little crowded. Things are gonna wad up a little bit, but it will fit. I've done it. Now, when if they're kind of wadded up and on the end here, and it's a little loose, and you're afraid, this block on the end of the chopstick should keep your stitches from falling off this side. But in case you're a little nervous about that, you can take a rubber band and just wrap around the end of that chopstick, and that will keep your stitches on. They won't fall off now. Doesn't look real pretty, but it works. So they can cram right up against there all they need to, and it will not, they won't fall off the needle. You'll be okay. Okay, so once you've got your stitches on there, now we're gonna do the knitting part, and it's real easy. You're just gonna do one thing over and over again. Once you get this, you have the whole thing. So you're gonna put this needle in your left hand, and I apologize to all you left-handers out there because I do not know a good way to teach anyone left-handed how to knit other than to do it right-handed and just learn it that way. There are people that do it. I am not one of those that can mirror the instructions, so my apologies if you're left-handed. Just try to learn it right-handed from this, or search YouTube and see if you can find a good video on left-handed knitting. Okay, so having said all that, you're going to put the needle with your cast on stitches in your left hand. Your empty needle will be in your right hand. And you're going to scoot your stitches. You can kind of hang on to them so they don't all fall off the end of this end of the needle right away. Hang on to them a little bit. Leave them good and loose. Let them move. And you're going to take your right hand needle. You're going to put it into this first loop, like in between these first 2 stitches, and then down and into that loop and underneath the other needle. Okay, so you're not going to put it in this way. That's a different stitch. We're not going to learn that today. You're going to put it in from this side, and then your needle is going to go underneath the needle that's holding all the stitches. Okay, you can do this one more time. So in from the left side and under. Then you're going to take your working yarn, which is the yarn that's attached to the ball. Make sure you don't, try to kind of keep this tail out of the way until you're well into it and you won't notice it anymore. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this yarn, and then you are going to bring it around under both needles, wrap it around the right hand needle, which is the one on the bottom, and then I always kind of like snap it between the 2 needles to get it real good and on there, like that. And you will slide the bottom needle towards you. Don't let it slip all the way out. This is a little tricky at first, but you'll get it. And then move it back to the top. And you see you've picked up this loop from the other yarn. And then you're going to slide this old loop off the needle, just like that. You can tug just a little bit, snug it up just a little, but don't do that a lot. You still want them kind of loose on there, especially for this first row. Okay, now we're going to do that again. That's a knit stitch. And that's all you do for this pattern is knit. So we go in between the 2 stitches, into this loop from the left side, under that needle, and then I always kind of hold them both together with my left hand. And you'll notice I've knitted for a while and I wrap the yarn around my fingers a lot. That's just habit. You don't have to do that. You can just pick up the yarn like this, and you're going to wrap it over that needle, between them, slide this needle through, hang on to that yarn you just put on there, and then slide the old stitch off. So now we've knit 2. Okay, I'm going to do it again. In fact, I'm going to do it quite a bit, so look all you like. You will get it. And you may have to, you can see I'm having a little trouble here. That first row is the hardest row to knit. It will get much easier on your second row. I'll tell you that right now. The stitches are a little tighter on that first row. So put your needle in, wrap your yarn around, pull the needle through onto the top and off. And you are going to do that to every loop on your yarn, on your needle. I'm going to go a little faster just so we can move along here. And it will take you a little bit to get the hang of it, but you will. Probably by the time you finish 2 or 3 rows on this little kitty blanket, you're going to be an expert knitter. You're just going to be flying through this. Okay, and I'm going to remind you again that this first row can get, that's why I wanted you to keep all your stitches very loose. If they get pulled tight like this, then it's going to be a real pain to work that needle in. And you may still have to sort of massage it in there, but be patient. The second row is easier. You will get it. So, just got 2 more. And we're going to knit right into that first slip knot, just like it was a stitch. That's our first stitch. And ta-da! We have now moved all of those stitches from one needle to the next. Another little tip with the rubber bands: if you have to lay down your knitting in the middle, you're not going to necessarily knit this project all in one go and never put it down. You can take another rubber band, and if you're afraid your stitches are going to fall off the front of the needle, the pointy end, you can take another rubber band, wrap it around both needles like so, and you got a needle stopper, yarn stopper, where your yarn won't fall off. You can lay them down that way, and barring any pets or children in your house, it should be pretty safe. Okay, so we just moved all of the stitches from this needle to this needle. We are now going to swap hands. You're going to move the needle with all of the yarn on it into your left hand again, and you are going to do exactly that again with your right hand, and you're just going to keep doing it. So, here's where it's easy to get confused with that tail. See, so you might have to kind of pull your yarn and knock that one off to the side so we don't see it. Once you get a few rows in, you won't have to worry about that. Okay, so we're going to knit again. In between the first 2, underneath, wrap the yarn around, bring that needle back on top, slide it off. And you should notice that once you get to your second row, you're not fighting those stitches anymore, where they get kind of tight from that cast on row. They should go a lot easier. Wrap around, through, and off. In, around. And you will get to where you're pretty quick at this after you've done it a while. It'll take a little bit. It took me a little bit, but okay, now we've done 2 rows. I'll do one more for you and then I'll show you how to cast off. Okay, so we have all our stitches on this one, and you can start to see a little tiny scarf we're making here. We're gonna move that needle over to the left hand. We're gonna put the empty needle in our right hand, and we're gonna go again. You're just gonna do this over and over. Oh, I do also want to mention that depending on what kit you get, you might encounter knots in your yarn. The knots are there because we had to put together some different colors of yarn and different lengths of yarn. You can just, the yarn knots should not come apart. They've been secured with some fabric glue. In general, if you're making clothes for people or something really nice, you don't want to do that. There are other ways to deal with changing yarns in the middle of your knitting. But for the kitties, they will not mind, so we just tied some knots. Don't be alarmed if you see those. Just let them fall where they may and just keep knitting as if it's one piece of yarn. You will continue this. I'm going to do one more row. I'm having so much fun. We are going to continue knitting back and forth just like this for about 17 inches, or if you like to count rows, it's about 136 rows. But you can also take a tape measure or ruler if you have it laying around and see where you're at as far as inches. You can also just use up all the yarn. Now, when I say use up all the yarn, I mean use up until you have about 3 or 4 yards left, because you're going to need 3 or 4 yards to do your bind off, which is how you're going to get all of this yarn tied up and off the needles once your blanket is finished. And I'm going to show you that now. So we'll pretend that this very tiny little scrap of fabric is your blanket. You have finished it. You've got 3 or 4 yards left of your yarn, and you're going to do a bind off. So it starts out just the way you've been knitting before. You're going to put your needle between the first two into that stitch on the needle. Wrap your yarn around, do a knit stitch, take it off. You're going to do that again to the second stitch. Put it in, wrap the yarn around, pull it through, and off. Okay, now you're going to take this left needle, slip it into that very first stitch from the left side. So you're going to go in between those 2 stitches. Oh, goodness, you may have some trouble like I'm doing. There we go. Catch that loop of yarn on your left needle, pull it over. You can see I'm going to pull it, I'm kind of holding on to this stitch with my finger. You're going to pull it over that stitch, slide them to the end, and drop that first stitch over the second stitch. Okay, now if you didn't quite catch that, it's okay. We're going to do it again. In fact, we're going to do it all along the length of your knitting. So you're going to knit the next stitch just the way you normally do. When you have 2 stitches on your needle, you're going to put your left needle into the second, well, it's the first stitch you knit, but it's the second one if you're counting from left to right on the needle. That's confusing. Put it between the 2 stitches on that needle, catch the rightmost one, pull it over the other stitch, and then off. Now when you do this, you don't want to snug up your yarn a lot. Don't tug, don't leave them very loose. And I mean, it doesn't have to be crazy loose, but do not like tighten up on it, because then your knitting will be a little lopsided, which again, if it is, the kitties won't mind. They will still be happy to have a nice warm blanket. But just in general, it's a good idea to leave your bind offs and your cast ons a little looser. All right, so we're gonna do that again. Pull it through, over and off. So you're always gonna have one stitch on this needle. Knit the second one, pull the first one, over and off. And you can see we've got kind of a free piece of fabric here now. It's off the needle. You're going to do that for all 60 some odd stitches that you have on your needle. It'll take a little bit, but just be patient with it. Knit. Dig into that first stitch, pull it over the second stitch, and drop it over. Pull it over and drop it. It's like it gets a little necklace. And if you look really close, you can kind of see a line of like V's where the loops all interconnect. That's exactly what we want. All right, we've just got a couple more. One, and I'm on my last stitch. I do the same thing with it. You're gonna knit it. You're gonna pull that next stitch over. Ta-da! Okay, you can put that needle down now. And I usually take this last stitch and just so I don't lose it, I pull it so it's a big loop like this. So it's easy to work with and it won't fall through. You can see you've got, as mine is a teeny tiny little piece of fabric, but yours will be bigger enough for a kitty. Then you're going to cut your yarn, or if you don't have very much yarn left because you've used it all, congratulations. You don't have to cut it at all. You can just use that tail, but I'm going to cut mine. So then this loop, you can just, it's a little scary, but you can just pull it right on through and your fabric will not unravel. Ta-da! The very last bit is weaving in the ends. So you have these two tails, one from where you cast on and one from where you cast off or bound off. It's the same thing. It's a good idea rather than just cutting these, because that slip knot at the beginning may come undone, or if you cut this short, it may slip through and your yarn will unravel. You don't want that. So it's a very good idea to do what we call weaving in. Now you can do this with a large needle at home if you want. You can actually like sew it into the fabric and it will be fine. If you don't have that, if all you've got are your chopsticks, what I would suggest is putting your, see, if you look at your, this is our cast on edge here, and you got a series of loops. Just put your chopstick through that series of loops, or just through one of them. Wrap the yarn around, and you're gonna kind of knit it. You're gonna pick it up and just pull it through. Just pull it all the way through. And do that again. It doesn't really matter which way you wrap it around the needle. Just kind of pull that yarn through those stitches for, yeah, I'd say 5 or 6, 4 or 5. It doesn't have to be all the way, you know, until it's gone. Oop, it might stick a little sometimes. There, just pull it on through. And once you've done that, say about 5 times, we'll do one more. Ta-da. Okay, it'll kind of wrap around and it might look a little goofy, but once it's washed, that will even out. And then you can take your scissors and just snip that off. Then you don't have a tail hanging. Okay? Do the same thing up here with the top. I'll show you a couple just for, don't use this first one. Use the second one. Because otherwise you just might unknit what you've done. Or you can go down the side. Yeah, let me do that. You can go down the side of your knitting this way. It really doesn't matter as long as you catch some stitches and just pull that through. Oh goodness. There we go. And we can go down this side, pull that stitch through. And once you've done, I don't have 4 or 5 to do because my little piece of fabric is so tiny, but once you've done a few of those, snip it off. And then put your little cat blanket in the wash. Give it a good wash. You should be able to put it in the washing machine. The yarn is all acrylic. It shouldn't shrink or anything like that. And then you can bring it back to Lincoln Library to be donated to the Feline Ranch. Thank you very much.
All blankets, once they've been completed, can be brought to Lincoln Library, and there will be a collection box on the first floor near the circulation desk. Thank you for your participation.